Hello. You are listening to a podcast of three family members. We banter, we talk ball, and we have a ball. My name is Scott, and you're listening to Butterball.
My name is Nicole. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Butterball Podcast. We post clips and other fun things on there, so follow us on Instagram at Butterball Podcast.
And I'm Drew, and you can listen to us on YouTube at Butterball Podcast or Spotify. Just search Butterball.
Okay, so the month of March is a tournament-filled month. A few weeks ago, we kind of set ourselves up and led into the NCAA wrestling tournament. That finished, so we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the men's and women's Sweet 16s is where they're at with the basketball tournaments this week. So let's spend a little time talking about wrestling first, just to kind of recap what the wrestling is all about. It's a different sport at Division I level. You know, there's a lot of programs have dropped out over the years. Like in the 80s, there was probably 145 programs of Division I wrestling. Today, there's 79. And so if you're a Division I wrestler, you're really good. And a lot of the talent is concentrated in the Big 10 and the Big 12. The way that the team scores came out were much as we expected. Penn State won by a large margin. And then number 2 was Oklahoma State. And then 3, 4, and 5 rounded out with 3 Big 10 teams. You had Nebraska at 3, Iowa at 4, and Ohio State was at 5. I think probably the surprise there to people would be Ohio State at 5, because a lot of people thought that Ohio State would be right up there with Penn State and Oklahoma State, and they weren't. They did not have as good of a tournament as those others did. Drew, as a former Oklahoma Stater, I think you need to check into the wrestling program and start watching it a little bit, because they are on the rise big time.
You're probably right.
Oh yeah, Penn State had 4 national champs out of 10, and Oklahoma State had 3. So 7 of the 10 national champs were those 2 schools, and Oklahoma State's 3 national champs, they were all freshmen, which is nuts. I mean, it's
Sounds
crazy.
like the start of a dynasty to me.
Here's a comparison. You know, you all know I went to high school in Iowa and college in Iowa. And during that time was when Iowa was in their heyday with Dan Gable as the coach. So Dan Gable, when he coached at Iowa, he coached there for 22 years. Started in 1976 and went to 1997. In those 22 years, he won the national title 15 times, 15 out of 22. I'd say that's a dynasty, right?
Yeah.
So now Penn State, Dale Sanderson's been at Penn State for 17 years. And they have won 13 national titles in 17 years. There's your dynasty. And so I like that Oklahoma State's, upping their game and is going to start challenging these guys, because I think it's going to make for some really, really good wrestling here in the time to come. So there was one thing that could be kind of controversial, I guess, if you look at it. And I think that you guys probably watched the video, but there was a wrestler from Penn State, the 165-pounder, Mitchell Messenbrink, and he basically destroyed his competition all the way through the tournament, including in the championship match. He beat Mikey Caliendo from Iowa 20-4. So he destroyed him. And then when they go to get their awards, on the podium after their match, Messenbrink, he would be the last one to get up onto the podium because he's the champ. So before he's going to step up on as the champ, he just went and he was shaking everybody's hand down the line. And when he stuck his hand out to shake Caliendo's hand, Caliendo just sat there like a statue and didn't even move or acknowledge him. So what do you think about that?
I think it's
Not a good look.
pretty immature.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a good look. And we like Iowa, so that's a little bit disappointing for us. But
yeah, people will say, well, but you got to understand, it's such an emotional sport and they put in all that hard work, and, he just got destroyed by the guy, and maybe he's taking it like the guy's trying to show him up in front of everybody or something like that. So I think there's some folks out there trying to give somewhat of an excuse for that type of behavior. I would agree with you that I think there's probably a better way to handle the situation. I know you're pissed because you got beat, but man, you got destroyed. So it wasn't like there was a controversial call at the end or something like that. He just beat you bad,
And he shook everyone else's hand.
Yeah, he did.
have enough social awareness to know that you are the only person that is denying the handshake at that point.
True. Yeah. 1991, the national tournament was in Iowa City. The University of Iowa just ruled the stands. I mean, the Carver Hawkeyes seats about 16,000, and pretty much everybody was from Iowa that was there. Well, there was a wrestler. He was from Portland State University, And at the time, Portland State was a Division II school. So, back in those times, if you were the national champ in Division III or Division II, you got to go to the Division I tournament as well. And this guy from Portland State, he was a 4-time national champ at Division II level. Then he ended up he was an All-American in 1990. He got 4th in the Division I tournament. So then here he was back in 91, and everybody knew he was really, really good. His name was Dan Russell. And I don't know if it was the second round quarterfinals when it was, but he was wrestling a guy from the University of Iowa, a guy by the name of Mark Ryland, who ended up becoming the national champ. So Russell goes out, and when they're wrestling, Iowa back in those days, they had this style where they would just attack. And then if the other wrestler was kind of going off the mat a little bit, they'd give him a shove like right at the end or something like that, And so that was happening. Russell was kind of pushing back, and then the crowd would be like, ooh, and they'd come back to the center of the mat though, and Russell would stick his hand out to shake his hand again. He must have did it like 4 or 5 times as they went off the mat. Then he'd come back and he'd shake his hand, before they started wrestling again. So it got to be kind of funny, and people were like, you can hear the crowd kind of rumbling when he was doing it. Well, they ended up finishing their match, and Mark Ryland beat him. They shake hands, and the referee raises Mark Ryland's hand. Well, then Dan Russell grabbed Ryland's hand, and he raised it. And he turned around to the Iowa crowd, and he was like, clapping overhead and pointing at Ryland like, yeah, he beat me. He beat me, all right. Well, it was the coolest thing. So here's a guy from Portland State. For the rest of the national tournament, he had 16,000 fans. I mean, the Iowa crowd loved him after that. And so he showed humility when he got beat by Ryland. But then as he was going through the tournament, every time he'd wrestle, you'd know when he was coming up because the crowd would just get up for his matches too. It was pretty cool to see. He ended up getting 4th that year in nationals too. So a little bit different way of handling a situation like that. But I agree with you that it wasn't a great look when you're pouting on the stand.
It's just awkward. And I think about the Winter Olympics whenever they're getting handed their little stuffed animal when they got their silver medal. And that's funny. If you can roll your eyes at the stuffed animal after you just got your silver medal. We can all laugh at that, but not shaking someone's hand after you get second, it does not equate. It doesn't hit the same. Something about the sportsmanship and the interpersonal contact, it's a little bit awkward. It's not quite as hilarious as the stuffed animal with the silver medal rolling your eyes.
So, hey, start preparing for next year, Drew, and follow your Cowboys because they're going to be tough next year, and I'm sure they're going to try to load up with a few more national champions there, and maybe they'll give Penn State a run next year because they're building towards it for sure.
All right.
The basketball tournaments are now down to the Sweet 16s in each of the brackets. So let's talk about the women's bracket first. So one thing that we mentioned in the past podcasts is that the women's bracket, the top of the women's bracket is light years ahead of the middle or the bottom of the women's bracket. And man, when you're looking at who's left in the Sweet 16 and what the spreads are, the lines on the game, it's crazy. So here's what we got. We got UConn and North Carolina. UConn's a number 1 seed. North Carolina's a number 4. How much do you think UConn's favored by in that game?
30.
I know it was a ridiculous amount. I think 30 is a good guess.
That's close. They're 27.5 point favorites over a number 4 seed, so that's kind of wild to see. Then on the other side of the Region 1 is Notre Dame versus Vanderbilt. That's a 2 against a 6, and Vanderbilt's favored by 5.5. That seems more reasonable. You see that on the men's side, the spreads there. Speaking of UConn, did you all see where the Syracuse coach was pissed about having to play UConn?
Yes, we did.
What do you think of that?
Drew?
I don't know how you're going to call it an unfair draw. You're going to have to play them at some point anyway if they're going to beat everybody that bad.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I said it's like being in the SEC and being upset that you got to play Bama in the SEC championship or something. Oh, why do we have to play them? They're so good. They win every year. Not anymore, but you get what I'm saying. Playing Georgia, certain regions are going to have more talent, and sorry that UConn's in your region. I don't really know what to tell you there.
People could say the same thing about if they're stuck with South Carolina because South Carolina's been really dominant at times and stuff too. But yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. You're gonna eventually have to play them anyway. So Maybe if you catch them early, maybe you catch them on an off day. I don't know. Catch them later, they might have a heck of a lot more momentum and destroy even worse. They got beat by 53. I'm like, I really don't know if you can really sit there and complain if you got beat by 53. Why don't you just get your team a little bit more ready to play, and maybe next time you only lose by 15 or something like that. Then maybe you're in the game. I don't know.
Go enjoy
know.
spring break. See you next year.
Yeah.
Transferred or moved to a different school, then maybe you won't be in their region. You won't have to play them that early.
Yeah. All right. Then in Region 2, UCLA is the number 1 seed. They're going to play Minnesota. What do you think the spread is on that one?
What is it again?
UCLA and Minnesota.
18.
18 and a half.
Yes.
Good guess. Yeah.
Look at me.
And then Duke and LSU play on the bottom side of that bracket. That's a 2 seed versus a 3 seed. LSU is 8.5 point favorites in that game.
Between a 2 and a 3?
What's that?
Between a 2 and a 3? It's
yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
In Region 3, you got Texas. They're going to play Kentucky. Texas is the 1 seed. Kentucky's a 5. And Texas is a 14.5 point favorites there. And on the bottom side of that bracket, it's a 2 versus a 3. You got Michigan and Louisville. And Michigan is 4.5 point favorite there. And then finally in Region 4, number 1 seed playing number 4, South Carolina versus Boomer Sooner. Nicole, what do you think the spread is on that one?
Well, I bet it's like a 23.5, but I love my Sooners, so hopefully it's not that bad of a game.
Yeah, South Carolina's favored by 17.5.
All right.
And then on the bottom side of that bracket, you got number 3 TCU versus number 10 Virginia, and TCU's a 9.5 point favorite. Virginia was the surprise there, and they beat Virginia's a 10 seed. They had to play a play-in game to get into the first round. Obviously, they won that. They won their first round game, and then they played Iowa, and Iowa was a 2 seed, and they beat Iowa in double overtime. So that's what put them there and broke the hearts of all the people in Carver Hawkeye Arena back in Iowa City.
Oh,
I think they probably had a full house there, and
it's a hard loss for them. They're
it
used
is.
to winning.
Well, and yeah. Well, especially you're a 2 versus a 10. They probably thought they had a pretty good chance to roll for a while there. So, but the interesting thing is again in this women's bracket, the number 1 seeds are all. I mean, the lowest point favorite is 14.5. Anywhere from 14.5 to 27.5. Obviously, the top tier of the women's brackets are much better than the lower part of those brackets.
I'm just surprised by the spreads. I didn't know it's so lopsided on the women's side.
Yeah. So it kind of makes you, like, when you do see an upset, like that is a pretty big upset when Iowa gets beat by a 10 seed. People are kind of like, ooh, wow, what happened there? Because boy, that usually doesn't happen. But
yeah, if UConn loses to somebody by being a 27 point favorite, that's almost crazier than a 16 beating a 1 in the men's bracket on some cases.
Yeah. And they're playing a 4 seed and they're favored by that.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It is crazy. Yeah. All right. So on the men's side, where we're at now is in the East. We're going to see number 1 Duke play number 5 St. John's. Obviously, Duke's favored. They're favored by 6.5. And then on the bottom side of that bracket, you got UConn. They're the number 2. They're going to play the number 3 Michigan State. UConn's a 1.5 point favorite in that game. So just a bucket. In the West, Arizona and Arkansas play. That's a 1 versus a 4. Arizona's favored by 7.5. Then Texas and Purdue will play, and Texas is the Cinderella here. They're an 11 seed, so they fought their way in. Yeah, people talking about that at school.
Yeah, I've heard some about it. I personally am shocked. That busted that area of my bracket a little bit, threw me off a tiny wee bit there. I was happy that they won 1 game and then they won again. And I was like, shit. But yeah, people are excited. But I don't think anybody expects it to last as bad as that is. I think everyone's just happy to be in the Sweet 16, which I don't think is bad as a fan base. I think that's very realistic and a good outlook on things. And then, if you happen to win again, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would agree. We got Purdue's favored by 6.5 over Texas. So we'll see how that turns out. Now in the South region, you got number 9, Iowa, Drew's Final Four pick.
That was another random a little bit.
And they're going to play Nebraska. Nebraska's a 1.5 point favorite. So we'll come back to that when we talk about our brackets and stuff. And then the bottom side of that bracket's number 2 Houston versus number 3 Illinois. Houston's a 3.5 point favorite. In the Midwest, you got one Michigan versus 4 Alabama. Michigan's favored by 9.5. And then number 2 Iowa State against number 6 Tennessee. Iowa State's favored by 4.5. So I don't think there was any big surprises in the East. You know, you got a 1, 2, 3, and a 5 seed. So, you know, that how they had them seeded is kind of how they played out. In the West, Texas was the big surprise there. Like you said, they played that play-in game, and then they beat Gonzaga.
Yeah.
In the South, Iowa took out Florida, which was the defending champs. That was huge.
Yeah.
And in the Midwest, you had Tennessee take out Virginia, and Virginia was a 3 seed there. So when we look at our brackets that we did on our bracketology, the ESPN, the group that Drew set up, Nicole, you're in the lead. You're in the family lead.
Yes, I am.
You are.
I have a system that works.
Yeah, your system is, you showed it last week, and obviously you got it going on.
Well, wait, let me say before you get to that, but until the round 2, like after round 1, let me pull up my notes because I had it written down. Day 1, day 2 was almost over. I was 97.8% accurate on round 1, basically. So we can say 95% accurate at the complete end of the day because Texas would have thrown that a tiny bit. But like my round 1 was pretty damn good. My round 2 is what dropped me a little bit. Now I'm at like 84% accurate, but I'm feeling good about my Final Four, which go ahead and please continue.
Well, you should feel good about your Final Four because you picked all the favorites. I mean,
well, I'm feeling good that I think it's going to be a bunch of favorites, but you know, that's always risky because somebody's going to slip in, but I don't know, something about it. I just really liked my Final Four. They were speaking to me, so we'll see.
Yeah, so here's how we all set ourselves apart a little bit. I have 450 points. You have 480. And then, Drew, you're at 380. So you've got one part of your bracket that's kind of blown up. In the East, both Drew and Nicole, you both have Duke going to the Final Four. I have UConn. So
okay.
UConn wins that. It really sets me up for success, future success. But we'll just wait and see. And then in the West, Drew, you're taking a risk there with you're going with number 2 Purdue. And Nicole and I are going with the favorite Arizona there. So that would help your bracket if Purdue won that one. In the South, boy, we're all over the place on this one. Nicole sticks with, she's got number 2 Houston. Drew's got Iowa. You got a number 9 seed there going to the Final Four. So, the interesting thing when you did that last week, and I was like, I don't think so. But, hey,
that was crazy.
People in Iowa are going to love you.
I'm in last place.
It's actually still alive.
I'm in last place in every group, but if Iowa and Purdue make the Final Four, I might sneak in and win it from everyone.
You're not going to win it unless everybody's champions are wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if Purdue goes all the way and wins it.
Yeah, Purdue and Iowa, I need both of them.
The interesting thing about
win the whole thing.
Well, the interesting thing about Iowa is, their first game they win, then they come into the second round, you go, oh God, they got to play number 1 Florida. Well, it was a nice run, they're probably going to bow out. Well, now they beat them. So now their next game is against Nebraska. Well, shoot, they beat Nebraska.
Yeah, that's very doable.
Yeah, them and Nebraska, they both they split in the regular season, and then on the other side of that, or the bottom side of that bracket, is Houston and Illinois. Well, if Illinois comes through and beats Houston, now you're playing another Big Ten team, so they've seen each other before. So it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that Iowa could get there. I still don't think they will, but hey. You're in there.
I want Houston.
Well, I have to say that they're not gonna because I picked Illinois in that bracket. So you picked Houston, Drew picked Iowa, and I picked Illinois. So, and then in the Midwest, Nicole went with Michigan, number 1. Gotta be a front runner.
I mean, like when I ran my numbers and I looked at who everybody's picking to win, like if so many people are picking Michigan to win, I gotta put them at least in the Final Four. Was my thoughts here. Okay. So I know it sounds silly, but like I really did try to think this through. You're making me a little bit scared. However, if my Final Four stands up, then I will be laughing in your face next week.
You probably will. Yeah. Because I'll be in a world. I'll be on the other side because we have a few different ones for the Final Four. Drew, you had Texas Tech out of the Midwest. Sorry, that's not going to happen. They're
I'm a
out.
Big 12 homer. What can I say?
yeah. And then I've got Iowa State. So hopefully the Clones will stay hot. We'll see. We'll see how they come through. In the dog category in our family, it looks like Charlie's in the lead. He's got 270 points. Chief has 240 and Lulu has 220.
Come on, Lulu.
And let's see. Charlie's got 2 teams still alive, Nebraska and Tennessee. His other 2 regions he's out. Lulu has Duke.
Yep.
That's it. Lulu's out. Lulu's
not
out
a bad one to have. That's not a bad one to have. She could go far with that.
Yeah. And then Chief's got Michigan. And that's his only one alive. So the dogs are on. The dogs don't have many alive. And
what about
we'll
Curdy?
see.
What about Curdy's bracket?
Curdy has UConn, and that is it.
Right. Because it's the only dog.
Yeah.
The only dog in the fight.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the action. Starts on Thursday. You got Purdue, Texas, Iowa, Nebraska at 6 and 6:30, and then closer to 9 o'clock is Arkansas, Arizona, Houston, Illinois. They play on Thursday. And then on Friday, Duke, St. John's, Michigan, Alabama at 6 and 6:30. Then UConn, Michigan State, and Iowa State and Tennessee will close it out. So in our blind draw pool, it's interesting that our poor Chief is out. He doesn't have any teams at all left, and he was my partner. So that's kind of a bummer. Yeah, so I'll just have to let him enjoy the 3 teams that I have along with me. Lulu only has 1 team. And Charlie still has 3 teams alive.
Wow.
So Charlie's taking care of that dog division big time. In the first round, there were 32 games. We had 8 times where people did not cover the spread. So 8 times teams got stolen from other folks, which is what makes this one fun. Drew, that's how you got Duke. I think you stole Duke from Nicole, didn't you, in the first round? So
they barely won. Remember? To Siena.
But the spread on it was like 28.5.
30. Yeah, it was very high. That was not going to cut it.
Yeah, well, that's what makes this so fun is stuff like that can happen. Now when you get into these games, like when there's a 1.5 point spread, I mean, you're basically just looking for your team to win, right? I mean, that's to land on a 1 point victory is not gonna happen a ton of times, but it can happen, I guess. But the biggest spread that we see coming up is 9.5 for the games this weekend, and that's Alabama. Alabama's gets 9.5 against Michigan. So who has Alabama? Charlie has Alabama in our blind pool. So if Alabama doesn't win by 10, Lulu will steal Alabama away. So Lulu's in pretty good shape, I think. Oh wait, no, Michigan has to win by 10. I screwed that up. Lulu has to win by 10. Yeah, so that's her only one. So I'll edit that out so I don't look like a freaking idiot. But,
I want that on a clip.
yeah. No, yeah. Michigan's a 9.5 point favorite. Lulu's got to have Michigan win by 10, otherwise she'll be out. And then all the rest of us have 2 or 3 teams still alive in this blind draw thing. And so, depending on how the games go, we'll see how it all pans out for us. You got anything you want to talk about on the blind draw?
No, I'll be excited to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's all luck, basically. Someone's going to get lucky.
It's gambling.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes this pool kind of fun, though, is since it is just a game of luck of the draw and then a game of chance based on spreads, it's just fun to watch because you didn't pick them, so all you can do is just root for your team to come through. And then if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. So what else we got going on here this week, Drew?
Opening days tomorrow, if you're a baseball fan. Opening night is right now on Netflix. I'm watching that here at the same time. At the Yankees and Giants playing each other tonight. But I'm not super excited for this baseball season because I'm an Angels fan and I'm not expecting them to do very well again.
Yeah, that's been kind of the status of the Angels for how many years now? Golly. I mean, they were decent. They were decent for a few years when we first moved to Texas. And that was in late 2010, 2011.
It's
since then, man.
Yeah, it's part of them, like, being really good when I was getting into baseball was awesome. It made me want to watch a lot. And now they've been so bad, it makes it hard to watch for so long.
Yeah. Well, that's why sometimes people change teams, I mean, that's not, you know, I
Should we
If
mean,
I was
talk
going to
about
change teams,
that?
it'd probably be.
changing teams.
Yeah, changing teams. I really like your philosophy on changing teams, Dad. What is your philosophy on this?
Well, my philosophy was I did change my team. So I'll admit that. And I've admitted it to many people. When I was younger, I was a Bears fan, Bears football fan. And I loved Walter Payton. And, then they won the Super Bowl in the 80s, and that was great. And then after that, after like the early 90s, and even really when they were in the 90s playing, they always had just horrible offenses. The Bears were just a crappy offensive team. And I hate watching crappy offensive football. So that, I'd find myself watching the Bears going, this is disgusting. I'm just getting tired of watching them. They're no fun to watch anymore. And, then when we moved here to Texas, I'd go on a trip every year up to Arrowhead and watch the Chiefs. And I really liked the vibe up there. I liked the people. And the third year that I went up there, they played the Bears. And, again, the Bears had a crappy offense and it was just a crappy game to watch. Although the Bears came back and they won the game right at the end. And so as a Bears fan, I should have been like really happy. And I was looking around and I'm like, man, I hate that the Chiefs didn't win this game. I mean, I was like, I identify more with the Chiefs fans. So I came back home and I told my wife, you can take all this Bears stuff and give it to Goodwill or sell it at a garage sale or whatever. Get rid of it. I'm not watching them anymore because they're no fun to watch. And I have way more fun watching the Chiefs. So I'm now a Chiefs fan. When I was watching the Bears on TV, I would find myself turning them off after the first quarter. And I'm like, well, why am I saying I like this team if I can't even watch them for a quarter, So I
No,
made the
but
switch.
wait, you said something else good that I like, you know what? I agree with. You've said before, everybody should be allowed to change teams once, but you only get one. You only get one in your lifetime. So you better choose wisely when and what team you want to switch to, but like, you only get one. So like, you're not switching again. You're now a Chiefs fan until you die.
I'll stick with the Chiefs now. Yeah, I will. I will. I like I just like their coach and their team. Although, Bears fans are getting happier now that they have a better quarterback
Caleb
now.
Williams.
And, yeah, and what's going on there. But again, I just couldn't stand to watch them. And then it was funny because then one of my friends was giving me a hard time this year when the Bears were doing good. Oh, you're going to switch back? You're going to switch back? And I'm like, no. I mean, hey, I'm glad they're winning for the people of Chicago and everything else, but no, I'm not switching back.
Yeah. So do you still stand by your statement that everybody should be allowed to switch once, but you only get one switch in your lifetime?
Oh, I'm not even going to limit anybody to one. Hey, just root for whoever you want to root for. I don't have a problem with people making a change.
That's a very progressive stance. You know what?
Well, I mean, in this day and age in college, you got transfer portals, and in the pros, you got free agency and everything else. A lot of times, people just like the teams because they like a certain player.
The players, yeah.
And that's where if your team doesn't hang on to the players that you like, well, then you could start getting pissed off at your team, and then maybe you don't like that team anymore. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I guess you would like a team other than, you just were brainwashed when you were younger and everybody told you that you had to be a Packers fan or whatever, I mean.
Oh my God. I love the video of the kid that's a Jets fan. Drew, do you know what I'm talking about? Oh my God. Drew, I know you've seen it because I swear when it pops up on my reels, it's like Drew has liked it. But like, it's this kid and he's a Jets fan. He goes, I hate this team. Well, I gotta find it. I gotta show it to you right now. It's so good. Oh, it's so good. Hold on. Let me play it from the beginning.
Y'all see them get your thoughts on the game?
I hate this team. I was born into this, and I'm not gonna ever. I'm always a Jets fan, but like, I hate this team.
That's how I feel about the Angels. You summed
I
it up
love
pretty
it.
close.
I love it so much.
Hey, young man, you don't have to do that, man. That's what I'm saying. It was funny because somebody was asking me, well, I can't believe you made the switch forever. And I said, man, I've been so happy every fall since. I can't tell you how football season is just much more of a joy for me, because I don't have to watch crappy offensive football every week. I can watch a
It's
team
just
that
so good.
that'll score.
I was
Yeah.
born into this. I'll always be a Jets fan, but I hate this team. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, they it's funny how you feel that way. People feel that way because when you go to a game, one bad play and people are like, oh God, boo and everything else. And it's like, man, the game it's not just one play long, I mean,
That is my least favorite thing about a few fan bases. I've noticed this. I'm not even going to point fingers right now, but they are both teams in Texas. And the thing that annoys me the most about these fan bases is like, there'll be a 5-yard drive, like 2 claps. 2 claps from the crowd, like nobody's really that excited about it. And then like it comes time, you get down to the end zone, it just doesn't work out. You end up kicking a field goal. Everyone's kind of just like, yeah, well, should have been a touchdown. Like nobody's even clapping for the freaking field goal. Nobody's happy about points on the board. And it just really annoys me because you go to Arrowhead and you know what? Everybody is still at least cordial enough to clap and be excited about points and be excited about moving the ball down the field. And it's just a different type of appreciation. And I've noticed that even when I was in college. I know Dad has a great story about the lady at the South Dakota game or whatever that was when
the
Jalen Hurts
Oklahoma?
was quarterback. Yeah. And but like so I noticed that at OU too whenever I was a student and a fan there because some of the students in the student section would also be greedy like that. And I'm like, you cannot expect an insane Heisman style pass every single play. That is ridiculous.
Well, the thing about the person who was in our row, when South Dakota was there playing Oklahoma, is Jalen Hurts' first game with OU, and when he would run the ball, she'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing? Don't run the ball!" And then when he'd pass the ball, she'd, "Oh, geez, what are you doing? That's a bad pass," and all this stuff. And it's like, how about you just like let him play the game? So the game plays out, and at the end of the day, he breaks a bunch of records, for OU and opening day and all this other stuff. Oh, this was a record. That was a record. This was, but the whole time, man, if you were just listening to the one person in our row, you would have thought that he was just crapping all over himself during the game instead of having a record-breaking day. It was crazy.
I think they were winning the whole time too.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
They're kicking their ass.
Yeah. Were you there? You were there that day, weren't you?
Yeah, I was at that one. I think they were. I thought they were playing Houston, maybe.
No, that was South Dakota. They looked the same, red and white. But yeah, I mean, geez, that year it was hard to sit in that seat because since it bothered me for that first game, I was like, oh God, I got to listen to this.
Then that was the same year that the Sooner schooner tipped over.
Yeah, that was quite a sight. That's kind of neat that you can say that. Hey, you were there when the when the schooner lost its wheelbase.
When history was made.
Yeah. I tell you that what do they call the girls that swung the little bags?
They're the roughnecks are the men, and then the little sis are the women that ride with them.
That little sis, if you watch that video, man, she dropped and rolled pretty good. I mean, I thought she did a pretty good job of not getting hurt.
Well,
they call them little sis.
The roughneck little sis, yeah. Well, you call yours paddle people at Oklahoma State, so
that's what they do.
Let's not make fun of the names here.
That's what they do. Yeah. So you're saying I get one free change of a team? Should I change my team to the Padres from the Angels?
Why do you want to change? Why do you want to change to the Padres?
My problem with the Angels is the way they're managed. They used to spend money kind of like the Dodgers, but they chose all the wrong guys and they got burned by these big contracts like we've seen. Finally got rid of Anthony Rendon. They went through Hamilton, Wells, Pujols, CJ Wilson. So it's hard because I can't blame Artie Moreno for not wanting to spend money on the team anymore. But I hate seeing him penny pinch and just not try anymore.
What I think we should create is the official submission site for change of team. And you're going to need to submit your rationale as far as why. Oh, no, not the form, like the site, like we're the review board. Like we
what does that form look like? Can I fill it out?
No, the form is just a certificate.
When I changed to the Chiefs, one of my friends sent me one. And it was like the official bandwagon application or something. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
We should make an online. We should make an online application. We are the review board. You can submit your official request to us
to the portal. We're the portal.
Yeah, we are the portal. We are the review board, and then we can determine whether or not your rationale, whether you are granted your one-time change of team or not. So the management, that's a good rationale. the Bears, that's a good rationale. Those are the types of things that would get approved. So as long as you have good rationale deemed by us, then you can change your team.
Okay.
So we get to be the judge
for
and then
the
change it.
cheap price of
Yeah. Then you get an official patch or something.
yeah,
You know, fan since
Then you
2015.
get to be part of our Facebook group.
It is a good idea.
Here's all the people that have changed teams in the last.
And then
3 months.
everybody can bond over that.
Whoa, we're not going to sell their data. Come on, we can't do that.
We're not going to
These
sell
are the
their
new
data.
these are the new fans, the transfer fans.
Transfer fans. Hey, is that the name? Transferfans.com?
It's the fan portal.
Yeah, the fan portal.
Yeah.
The fansfer portal. This is gold. The fansfer portal? That is so good. Are y'all aware of what's going on with NIL right now?
Like what do you mean? What's going on?
Have you heard of the House settlement?
Ah,
All right, so this is something that you should know. Everybody should know this if you want to stay plugged into NIL legislation. So this is not brand new. This has been happening, but it is newer, as in newer this season. This changed, as in last season. So you should know this. So it's referred to as the House settlement, and basically there was multiple cases where people were claiming that they should be paid back. I don't know what the word is, damages, or like they never got paid for NIL in the last few years, as in like since 2021. But if you were an athlete like 2016 or later, you can try to apply for like to get money. It's closed now, but basically the big change here to note is starting last season, schools, if you are opted into the House settlement, could pay their athletes directly in the name of like damages, like just straight revenue, just straight checks. And so all of your major schools are opted into this House settlement for the most part. A lot of schools are. There's a few that aren't. So if you're opted out of the House settlement, you can only pay your athletes through like true NIL deals, like a advertising campaign, a social media post or a commercial or an appearance or whatever. But if you're opted into the House settlement, is where you can kind of get away with pay for play. So this year was the first year where we legally saw pay for play in the name of NIL, because it is
Well, it's a separate bucket, right? I mean, it's a separate bucket. So the pay for play that's basically their roster. They can have a roster pay, and it's across all sports, right? They get a pool, like, isn't it like $20 million for the big schools?
That's for the whole House settlement was like 30 million.
Well, what I'm saying is like the University of, let's pick a big school, Tennessee. They can take 20 million and spread it across athletes across all their sports, right?
Yeah, it ends up being like a few thousand a semester, I think.
Well, they can choose how much they're going to pay each person, right? Or is it an equal spread?
There is a cap on it. I don't know if it has to be spread equally or not, but I do know that there is a cap on it.
Yeah, so you have basically you can pay a roster now, and then you have NIL, and the NIL, the part of that that's different is you basically have to apply through a portal for NIL and say what athlete is getting the money and for what.
For then the NIL Go.
Yeah, because then it's audited by.
Yeah, that's if you're doing a true NIL deal, but they can pay the players anyway. So like for a lot of them, I mean, the NIL Go now is, if you're submitting something to it and you're actually doing work, like you're pretty much fine. Like you're going to be fine. Especially now that this other thing exists. But
part of the
very
audit,
awkward.
Yeah, but part of the audit is the third party auditor, which I think is Deloitte, will basically approve or disapprove based on who the athlete is and what sport they're in, and are they worth as much as you're really trying to give them and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. So they just want to see that A, you're doing work, and B, that it's a fair market value for what you're doing.
Right.
But it's very interesting because like I've spoken with some coaches and they said that they put something through NIL Go, and it was like a charity event that they wanted to do with a couple of their basketball players, and it ended up getting declined because they said it was, I don't know if they said it was like too much money for attending the charity event, or I don't know what the rationale was, but I just thought that was a little bit ridiculous because it was a charity event of all things. And like this school was not one of your major schools, and the price tag was not anything that you should be concerned about. Like, the market value was essentially there, and it was a charitable, like, actual real appearance. So that one kind of threw me, but other than that, NIL is NIL. But the house settlement is something to be tuned into and paying attention to, because for the past, since 2021, everyone's been acting like it's been pay for play, but this year was the first year where it actually seriously was.
All right. Which, yeah, it's changing the game. It's changing how people recruit. It's changing a lot of things because, man, you're right with the transfer rules relaxed compared to past years as well, where people can play right away when they transfer. Man,
Yeah.
these coaches got to be on the hustle because they could turn over a lot of their roster every single year. Man, it makes it hard. I can see why, the coaches that weren't really into it, like Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, you're probably like, man, I don't even want to do this. This is
Yeah.
not going to be fun,
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough if you're a team like that has 50 unrestricted free agents at the end of every season.
Well, yeah, but I guess, but you just, and if you're going to do it, if you're going to be a coach, in this climate, you just got to you got to buy into it. And you got to figure out from your organization, how are we going to do this, and just accept that that's part of what it is now. That's, if you want to coach at that level.
To a professional model.
Yeah. It's because it's not going away.
No, and if you're an athlete, why wouldn't you enter the portal and try to get a raise?
Yeah, I mean, that's
absolutely
kind of what everybody's looking to do. So, yeah.
Maybe we should start a new rule where you're only allowed to transfer once in your whole career, and then you have to stay there.
Well, I mean, the transfer rules used to be super strict.
Be that, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they used to be like, if wherever you transferred, if you transferred up a division, like you're in Division 3 and you transfer to a Division 1 school, you had to sit out a year. And then a lot of times, even if you're at a Division 1 and you want to go to a different Division 1, you had to sit out a year. Kyler Murray had to sit out a year at OU when he transferred there from A&M.
They don't even
he still had to do that?
Yeah, he had to sit out.
They don't even let guys in my men's baseball league switch teams without sitting out a number of games.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. No, Baker Mayfield did. Dad, weren't you the one that told me the story about Baker Mayfield? Or did I hear that through the grapevine at OU?
I don't know. I mean, it was in Sports Illustrated when he had to sit out a year. Yeah.
No, he had to sit out a year, and then when he was sitting out a year at OU, he joined an intramural team.
Yeah.
Or I think some
he
people
was playing flag football.
Yeah.
Yeah, they begged him to play. He was like, all right, fine, I'll play, but I'm not going to be the quarterback.
Yeah.
And then they did a flea flicker or something, and then he got in trouble.
Yeah. And they got a letter from the league. This guy cannot play anymore.
Which is hilarious.
We've had that happen in our adult hockey league, right?
Yeah. It happens in any league, really.
You did?
Yeah.
Your team did?
Well, because we were the same. The core of our team was kind of the same for several seasons, but we kept picking every new guy we picked up was better. And so then, like, two of the seasons, we ended up with some really good players, and they were good. They were legit. They probably shouldn't have been in our league, and people were getting pissed.
I thought you were going to talk about that one time we played the 6'7" dude who was a pro hockey player in Europe.
What?
Oh, when we were over, yeah. Wow. Man, I just wanted to stay out of his way so I wouldn't get run over.
What are you talking about? Wait, I didn't know that y'all ever got in trouble from...
Well, we really didn't get in trouble. It was just, they basically said, you guys have to move up next session or you got to cut some of your players if you want to stay in the same league.
Well, which players do we have to cut?
Well, that was our thing. We're not going to cut anybody, so we moved up.
Why don't you just cut the people that suck?
Because that's me.
Well, the whole thing was we had players that were too good, so we had to move up.
Oh, it was a joke. Oh, you didn't get it.
I didn't. It went right over my head.
It wasn't really very funny, so it's fine. And then you played somebody who was 6'7"?
Oh, this guy was huge. He didn't wear. He didn't have any shoulder pads or elbow pads or anything on, and he was freaking huge. So I was just like, man, sticking my stick way out, trying to poke it away from him or something. I'm not going to get in front of him, have him run you over.
When was that?
That was a long time ago.
A long time. It was a couple of years ago, number of years ago.
That is the one thing I appreciate about hockey, though. Well, like, I don't know if I should say appreciate, but like, whenever I am at a hockey game and I see all the hockey players, they all just look so big and tall, but it's because they're all wearing skates and a bunch of pads, and then you see them all in real life and they're not that big or tall. I mean, they're some of them are, especially if they're like good players, or in the minor leagues or whatever, but still, like, they're a bit scrawnier than I would imagine half the time, which always throws me off because everybody looks so big and tall on the ice.
It's funny to see, like, Bennington out of his pads. He's a little skinny guy.
Goalies especially are
the
skinny
goalies,
tall
yeah.
dudes.
Yeah, he's a lot. I mean, you see him in those pads, he looks like he'd be a Hulk, and then you see him out of his pads, you're like, oh God, looks like he weighs about 170 pounds.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
It's false advertising, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, those guys are. The thing about goalies is, I mean, they're incredible skaters, and you don't really have that appreciation because they're not skating around a lot.
Why? They only skate this way.
But their balance and their sense of being able to change direction and get in position and everything else, it's amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening this week. You've been listening to Butterball. It's a podcast of three family members talking ball and having a ball. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube to our channel.
Yes. Follow us on Instagram at Butterball Podcast. Check out our clips and other fun things on there on Instagram at Butterball Podcast.
And listen to us on Spotify. Just search Butterball.
All righty. Have a great week, everybody. Until next week. Bye-bye.